Welcome to Off the Radar here on Sikkim 365 Radio, taking a look at a variety of stories from around sports. And we will start off with a franchise that is as dysfunctional as it gets, but that two-thirds of the panel up here just so happen to root for. That's the Washington football team, or excuse me, the Washington Commanders. Now I'm getting used to saying football team after saying Redskins for so long, and now I'm going to have to get used to saying Commanders. But I might need to start getting used to saying a new team owner at some point in the near future. I would actually welcome that with open arms. But Dan Snyder is not going to budge if he doesn't have to. But maybe, just maybe, today's story is another push in that direction. The House Committee on Oversight and Reform, they are investigating the widespread sexual harassment claims that occurred within the Washington franchise under Dan Snyder. And they were already, on that subject and looking into that. And now they've got a little bit more on their plate as they will now be looking into some alleged financial impropriety after a report from the Washington Post. Some allegations came to light in recent weeks while they've been reviewing the 80,000 plus documents. I don't know how they go through all these documents so fast. Like with the Baylor stuff, there's like 1 million plus documents, and they went over it in like 2 months. Like I don't know how they get through all of that. But the investigators are now apparently exploring whether or not Snyder has been using 2 books of financial information that would create, a picture of what he wants people to think versus what the actual financial picture of the team is. So apparently he's been operating 2 books, and the investigators are looking into the debt load Snyder undertook when he bought out the rest of the Commanders' ownership. They're also looking into deceptive accounting practices and also allegations of gender pay disparity. The committee said they continue to investigate the hostile workplace and culture of impunity at the Washington Commanders, as well as the NFL's inadequate response and lack of transparency, and they'll follow the facts wherever they may lead. And the Commanders have already denied the investigation. They say they're not aware of any investigation regarding financial matters, despite vague and substantiated claims today by an anonymous source, and the team categorically denies any suggestion of financial impropriety of any kind at any time. So we will see. The sexual harassment stuff was already a lot on their plate, but if financial improprieties are now involved, that maybe could be the final death knell for Dan Snyder ownership in the NFL.
Well, I mean, that would kind of track with everything you know about the team and the way that they do things. Look, just a few months ago, we saw a very rinky-dink thing fall over at the stadium, which, I mean, that you see that happen at, high school fields and stuff like that, that the budget from the city hasn't been approved to fix their stands or whatever. You don't see that at the NFL level where, there should be no, I mean, even older NFL stadiums you go to and they're constantly refurbished and they don't have.
I knew those Super Bowl week was the brand new spanking clean that had an issue.
That stuff was pretty solid. It just looked janky, but
yeah.
It wasn't, but like they don't have those issues. Then you go back to, I'll just tell you personal stories that I know is when the Washington media comes to Dallas, they are so thrilled to get there because they don't have to wait in a concession stand line for a hot dog and a small soda because that's what Dan Snyder gives them. And so there's all these kind of different things that they do. And when you see a sports franchise that cuts corners like that, it would not surprise me that there's 2 sets of books.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with anything. Daniel Snyder, impropriety and running of the team. I really wouldn't be. Now, again, it's an allegation. It's not like, hey, this is absolutely true. You always have to be careful with that. But they are expanding their scope, apparently, even though Washington's like, we have no idea what you're talking about. So we'll see where it goes from there. And Mike Florio, I think he can be kind of hit or miss. I think sometimes he gets a little bit out over his skis, just my opinion. But he did say at one point that he's told for the first time ever there is a sense among ownership that the time may have come for Daniel Snyder to move on. And I think it's way past due, honestly. There's just too much other crap going on.
They can make this look like a win for Daniel Snyder and that all they need to do is find a buyer that will knock him over.
They can't make it look like a win. They cannot. It's too much. There's too much toxicity, whatever the word is, too much swirling to make it look good. If he sells the team, it was because he was forced to sell the team, period.
Yeah. One of the big news and notes that came out of yesterday, and I think you might have briefly mentioned it at the very beginning, but Bruce Arians retiring as head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Todd Bowles will be the new head coach in Tampa Bay, replacing Bruce Arians. This is after Tom Brady had announced, right when Selection Sunday was happening, that he was going to be making his way back. But he will now, Bruce Arians, that is, transition to a front office role. He is being named the senior football consultant, and again, Todd Bowles takes over as head coach. So kind of surprising and kind of out of nowhere. I mean, I don't know if there was a lot of scuttlebutt before about him leaving, but I just figured with the Tom Brady news and all that, like, hey, Bruce Arians will be back, but no, it's going to be Todd Bowles. He was Arians' head coach of the Buccaneers for 8 seasons. He was also the interim for 12 games with the Indianapolis Colts during his career. So there's been a lot of talk. He's had like health issues and things like that over time. So I guess he felt like it was a good time to step away, but it was a bit surprising.
Yeah, he was hilarious at the press conference today. Very much sounded like a guy who was going to take one of those roles in the front office that is.
I want that speech one day. Yeah, retirement speech, basically.
Just like, listen, I'll do what they ask, but I'll be fishing most of the time. Yeah. And that was but his goal was to get one of his guys in a good position, and I think he feels, look, Todd Bowles. It's probably not fair for Todd Bowles not to have a head coaching job, and not just based on the fact that race and all the things that go into the Rooney Rule and all that may have followed Todd Bowles around. But what's following Todd Bowles around more than anything is he was the head coach of the Jets. They didn't win, and that's cast a pall over his career. Well, now he's setting up Todd Bowles in a really good situation where Todd Bowles can be successful and win, and then people can see that the guy probably should be a head coach in this league. So I believe Bruce Arians when he says, look, it was just about getting the right succession plan in, and when Brady decided to come back, that really set up, Bruce for what he wanted to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought there was, I thought he was going to be out, and then, health reasons, whatever. I don't know the truth between Arians and Brady, but I do know, I saw an article I read earlier today that Brady even knew that this was most likely going to happen. It's like Rodgers knew Devontae Adams was going to be gone too, which initially you go, oh my God, what does Aaron Rodgers think, or what does Brady think? I think what he's doing is incredibly classy. Yeah, absolutely. Let's set it up on the table. Whether they win or not remains to be seen, but he's giving them a full deck.
Yeah, I think that would have been kind of a ridiculous business practices to welcome Tom Brady back, and then, oh yeah, by the way, Tom, we failed to mention the head coach is leaving. So you sure you still want to? That would have been backwards. So, yeah, they got that ironed out. Colin Kaepernick was on social media a little bit yesterday as he was visiting Michigan, and he was visiting his old 49ers head coach, Jim Harbaugh, as the Wolverines get geared up for their spring game. Of course, Kaepernick and Harbaugh took the 49ers to a Super Bowl back in 2012. He hadn't been in the league for going on 6 years now, still working out and doing all of that. But there was a picture that Michigan football put out. It was Cap and Harbaugh, and they had an honorary Michigan jersey with his name on the back, and then he took some pictures with some of the players as well. But he's going to apparently be holding a throwing exhibition at halftime of the Michigan spring game. So it'll be kind of part of the entertainment portion. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with that, but he's going to be holding a throwing exhibition, and he's also been named an honorary captain for the maize and blue spring game. So, Harbaugh in the beginning wasn't all on board, but I guess they've ironed out any differences they may have saw initially with what Kaepernick was doing and his protests and things like that, and he has supported him in the time since. So, just kind of cool to see them reunite, and that'll be a little addition to the Michigan spring game coming up, I believe, this weekend. Elsewhere, the Keem Messidor thing was absolutely huge news. West Virginia losing him to the transfer portal. Very shocking. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in Neil Brown's office whenever that news came down, because they've already suffered immensely from the transfer portal subtractions. I think they were at one point maybe like the team that was affected more than anybody else in the country. They were going on 20 guys in the transfer portal before spring ball even kicked off. But one of their best players, Keem Messidor, entering the transfer portal, and according to West Virginia papers, Neil Brown said to be hurt and sad over the news. So
I would be too.
Yeah.
I would be too. And look, I'm Neil Brown. The fact that all these people keep jumping in the transfer portal is not. It's not a good reflection on me as a coach that people, the players don't have a lot. That makes you think the players don't have a lot of faith in him. And West Virginia is a place you can win. Lots of people have won there, and I say lots, but a few people have won there as a coach. So I mean, we've had a lot of West Virginia fans that chime in on the board and in the chat room, and I don't think Neil Brown's all that popular. This certainly isn't going to help. So I would say his heat is pretty warm as the season gets underway.
And what really sucks is that it may not have anything to do with him. It might have just been like Cal called, or I know that's a random ass team there, or Stanford, or if somebody called and just said, hey, what do you think about getting in the portal? And if you do, I mean, like, and is there anything barring that, really? I mean, I don't think so. So Akeem Messidor might have been all in on West Virginia, and then just somebody randomly calls him up and is like, hey, NIL money, baby, and you could just flip a guy like that. I don't know how it all went down, but, I mean, based on how shocked Neil Brown was by this, I mean, there was really no indication. So just part of the NIL era of college football that we're in. It can
happen on any time, any program, even the elite who might be spending or have the most money available. It's more than free agency in the NFL. It's wide open.
They have less restrictions than professional athletes. So I don't know what this little gimmick we're still playing around with is, but they have more freedom to move around than a professional athlete does, and I think that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm all for giving guys chances, but I mean, let's have like some semblance of like rules in place. This is stupid.
Well, I mean, look, there's tampering that goes on, to a high level. So how can you? I mean, like that's the biggest thing that you get under control is the tampering, and it's going to be hard to do.
That? I don't know. Control it? I don't know how you do it.
I don't know, especially when all you've done so far is just throw your hands up and said, well, till legislation's passed from the government, like we can't do anything, and it's you guys don't do anything to begin with. So it's just, typical kind of NCAA. It's out of our hands. We'll just deal with it when we have to deal with it and go lose a court case at the end of it. That's basically the story of everything they've done here as of late. And then some NBA early entries. You mentioned sophomore Wisconsin star Johnny Davis has entered his name into the NBA draft. I've seen a few mock drafts where he is certainly looked at as a lottery pick. So no real surprise that he decided to go and apply his trade in the NBA. But he is officially now in the draft, adding to what should be a pretty loaded class. And Jaden Ivey, who I've seen in some mocks is projected as the number 1 overall pick potentially. He announcing his entering into the NBA draft as well. So Purdue losing their star player to the pros, but I don't think that comes as much surprise either. And then Texas Tech with another departure, potentially guard Adonis Arms declares for the NBA draft. So Tech with another player after Terrence Shannon just about a week ago announced that he would be transferring. Now Adonis Arms has declared for the NBA draft. So there's 3 pretty good players who we're talking about quite a bit over the last few months that are all in, and certainly with Ivy and Davis, you'll see them go pretty quickly, I would imagine.
Ivy hit the dagger that put away Texas in that game in the NCAA tournament. He's smooth, looks like an NBA-style guy. And obviously Davis, we mentioned, he was Wisconsin's best player. I don't know who the number 1 pick is going to be. I know that Banchero from Duke, when I watched who he's been the last 2 or 3 games or 4 games, it seems like he is right now just surging. Not that he was surging because he was near the top, but it's going to be interesting. This will be a nice. But one thing about elite college players, that doesn't always translate to the NBA. No. It's not just like college football, but more so it seems like there's so few opportunities to play in the NBA, even if there's 15 or 20 really, really incredibly talented players, whatever year they are in college.
I mean, as far as the number 1 picks, I mean, you're looking at Banchero, you're looking at Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga, obviously. You're looking at Jaden Ivey, and you're looking at Jabari Smith of Auburn. Those are the guys I've seen most often mentioned for being the number 1 overall pick, and obviously a little bit of a way to go there. But, Jaden Ivey's in, and now he not a surprise doing that, but now he will definitely have a lot of watch as far as being that top guy that's taken. And let me see. Tonight we got Xavier and Texas A&M in the NIT. Yep. The NIT continues rolling on along, and of course, going to be the last time in Madison Square Garden for at least for the next couple of years, as we talked about in this segment a week or so ago. But Xavier and Texas A&M later on tonight, the NIT championship. So you can check that out. And I was trying to get the game time starting at 6 o'clock. So right as we wrap up here, you can check out Xavier and A&M from MSG over on ESPN. And those are a few things off the radar.
Thank you very much, Craig. By the way, if I see any of you on Twitter tonight, not that I'm going to be searching you out, that sits there and goes, yeah, but it's just the NIT. Baylor celebrated like a son of a you-know-what when they won the NIT because it gave them something to cling on to, and it helped get them to the next level. Texas, just 2 years ago or so when they won it, they actually had a Twitter feed that said national champions, and they got roasted for it. But
rightfully so.
You celebrated it. And when you haven't done much, and A&M actually has had a few NCAA tournament wins in recent years, but, it's something.
But Buzz Williams is trying to build, something there. And if you can teach a team to win 5-6 games in a row, that's a big deal. And have to do it like that, it's good for developmental squads, people that are. And the other thing is, if you're an NIT champion, for Baylor, it also allowed them to go and say, like, hey, a couple of transfers. We just won the NIT. We could go even further if you came here.
It's extra practice.
It's not an empty win for A&M if they win tonight. That's actually a good win for them, and it's just something where you don't want to celebrate it again in 2 years. You win the NIT right now, and then you don't go back to the NIT, but maybe once in the next 6 or 7 years, and you barely do that at that. But, yeah, Buzz Williams is there to build something, and, I think a good building block would be an NIT title, so they'll have that opportunity later tonight.
You can put it's not the national championship. It's not the Final Four, but it used to be a bigger tournament than anywhere. It's not anymore. And it might be the last time they play it for a while at Madison Square Garden as well as they start to move that around.
Yeah, it is for at least a couple years.
When we come back,